Morning, this is the House Appropriations Committee. It's Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. It's about 10:40 a.m. And we are here because we are making a couple of changes to S-243, which we voted out last week, which is the act relating to distributing funds to the Vermont Language Justice Project. You'll recall there isn't any new money. It's transferring money or reverting money from the Office of Racial Equity specifically for this project. We had put an amendment in after further review and consideration and talking to people. It turns out that it's the best way to proceed is actually for us to withdraw our amendment, and then House Human Services has a new amendment. Basically, it's kind of a substitute amendment. So we don't have the bill, but we're going to do two straw polls about this. But first, we're going to hear from I don't know, Ray, do you want to, Rep. Carolina, why don't you set it up, and then we'll have Katie talk us through the new, and it's on our page, the new amendment. So tell us what happened.
Yes. So,
Introduce yourself.
right, Ray Garofano, House Human Services, Essex and Essex Junction, showing my chair that I might be late. Okay, so thank you for your work here. After you all passed out the bill that reverted the money and changed, I think, the language from the Office of Racial Equity to the Health Department, we were alerted by the Health Department and had further conversations with the Office of Racial Equity that your amendment would have actually limited access to the funds to only the Health Department, which was not our intent. We want to make sure that any state agency, like, for example, Department of Public Safety or Emergency Management, would be able to access the funds at the Office of Racial Equity to utilize the Vermont Language Justice Project to produce these videos when it's appropriate, right? In case of an emergency, a health emergency, things like that. Right. And the reversion didn't need to happen because we heard testimony after you all passed it out from the Office of Racial Equity and the Health Department that the money that's sitting with the Office of Racial Equity that we appropriated a few years ago, this is an allowable use for that money. So we don't need to revert money as long as our intent, which our second amendment will do, gets this organization on the approved contractor list, then they can have that relationship with the Office of Racial Equity, and then any state agency. It would be primarily probably the Health Department and the Office of Management, Emergency Management that would be used, but it wouldn't limit it to those two or one agency. Okay. So our further amendment that I'm going to assume, the hope is that you all will withdraw your amendment because we don't need to revert and we want to have more broader access. And then our further amendment just changes a couple of technical changes to make sure that the Vermont Language Justice Project will adhere to all the state contracting rules. So we're not directing one organization to become a state contractor, approved contractor, without making sure that they go through the process and comply with all the requirements and meet the criteria.
That was the question I was going to talk about was with contracting. So this is not just giving them carte blanche.
No.
To get it, they're still gonna, they still have to be an open bid.
So this would, what we're directing BGS to do is to work with them to navigate the process to become a state approved contractor, which there are several organizations that are on the approved contractor list that allow state agency to use them without an open bid process.
Source contract.
It would be similar to a sole source because this is something that we want to bypass the time it takes to go out to bid. Because if there's an emergency or a natural disaster, we want to be able to produce these videos as quickly as possible to get the information out to the community. So a bid process would kind of.
So we think that this is going to work.
Yeah,
Kind of challenge.
Yeah, we heard from the testimony when we took up the bill that State agencies were already working with them in doing this and in getting them to the point where they will be meeting the requirements to get on this approved list. So our amendment just kind of directs BGS to really focus in on it and do it as quickly as possible to ensure that they are available for access for state agencies.
So you can either sit there or whatever, but let's have Katie up to talk about the amendment.
Well, you can have this.
Okay, and it's Garofano's amendment. It's not, because you don't have, the committee doesn't have possession of the bill, so that's how it was done, so, yeah. Okay,
Good morning. Sorry to keep you waiting.
no problem, it's all worked fine.
It's an exciting morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So here is the amendment. And this removes section 2 in the Human Services Committee report and puts in a new section 2 that looks quite similar to the original one. So we have language instead of the Office of Racial Equity shall contract, the Office of Racial Equity may contract with the Vermont Language Justice Project to prepare these informational materials. And then in the second sentence, nope, I'm going to stay on this first sentence. In fiscal year 27, the Office of Racial Equity may contract with the Vermont Language Justice Project to prepare informational materials at the request of state agencies and departments as needed to assist Vermonters who speak languages other than English in the event of a disease outbreak, natural disaster, or public health emergency, including ongoing personal and public health information. And then we have in the second sentence that BGS shall assist the Vermont Language Justice Project as it navigates the process to become added to the state's list of approved contractors. So that is phrased slightly differently. So it doesn't assume that the Vermont Language Justice Project will automatically become listed as an approved contractor, but will get assistance in navigating that process.
I understand that I know about getting contractors on lists, agency lists like that. My concern is that by naming this particular organization in the statute, that might cause a problem.
It's not in statute, this is session.
It'll be in session law.
So it's not permanent in the green books.
Well, I'm not worried about that part. I'm worried about, others that might come to that wanted.
Assistance.
Because it could be worded that the Office of Racial Justice may contract for the services of this type of services without naming the entity. Right, and they would still be able to do it. The Justice Project would still have to get onto the list, right? And you're the attorney, but that's what's made me a little nervous.
Yeah, I hear the concern. I think this is a policy choice that Human Services has made to name this particular organization.
And our amendment that we're withdrawing was actually giving the money specifically to the Language Justice Project. So there's nothing different in any of that, except we're not actually.
But it is, because we as the legislature could give the money to this organization without any problem at all. But I see it if it's going to be part of a contracting issue, then having any hint of any favoritism in a contracting thing could potentially be an issue in terms of somebody suing because that somebody else had dibs on this money. So two different ideas. The legislature has a statutory authority to give the money to somebody, but if you're going to go into the state contracting system, I don't know if you want to. Maybe it's fine, but it could be a little loose thread that could end up with a lawsuit.
I hear your concern. I don't know if this goes far enough. It does soften it from the version of the report that Human Services had offered and that would still have been offered with the Appropriations Amendment, because that language said that the Office of Equity shall contract, and this is a may. Also, the previous version, the language was more assertive in the BVS helping the Vermont Language Justice Project to become one of the listed approved contractors, and this doesn't assume that it will automatically become an approved contractor. This provides assistance in navigating that process. So maybe that doesn't go far enough, but it is.
Just the may take care of everything.
Yeah, yes, it's not shall, it's may.
The may do it.
Okay. I have Tom and then John.
So just to be clear, this is session law, so the first phrase in fiscal year 27 just means that it's just this 1 year that they're gonna be able to. But this second sentence, which just says that, so Office of Racial Equity may contract with them regardless of whether they're a contractor or an approved contractor, or do they have to be approved contractor first in order to receive the funds?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Because the second sentence can say that, okay, so we shall assist the project as it navigates the process. It's possible that, sorry, this is just so end of session legislative, like digging into this stuff. So that sentence can say to me that it's possible that the project may not get approved as a contractor. And so the question is, if you're an approved contractor, that tells me that in the years forthcoming, you can be contracted with for further updates of this material. So are we definitely saying we may contract with this group only if they're approved, or is it, how does that work?
I think there's an and, like it's almost a second paragraph.
I don't know the order that things would have to happen. I don't know if they can contract without them being an approved contractor.
Provided that,
the person I would ask is Emily Byrne. I think she has a better sense about the contracting process and approved contractors than I do.
Can I offer? So any state agency can enter into a contract with an organization with an RFP process, with a procurement process. So this does not preclude any state agency on hiring the Vermont Language Justice Project to do a project for them, as long as they go through the procurement process and they do a bidding and the VLJP bids and they're the winner. What we're trying to achieve with this amendment is to say that we want state agencies to quickly have access to this funding. So if VLJP meets the criteria, which many organizations, to your point, are on, like in marketing and printing and, there's advertising, they're on the list because those are jobs that you need access to regularly and often enough. And there's a rigorous process at BGS. And full disclosure, I know this because I work for the executive branch and this is part of what I do when I'm not here. So this is trying to bypass that process. So
in this one case,
for this organization, so they would have access. And the reason why we were intentional about the fiscal year 27 is because we want to ensure that the amount that we've been talking about, which is around $150,000, is available this year for use.
So
out of that budget that ORE has.
So it doesn't carry into future years. It's specific.
but if they become an approved contractor,
And there's an appropriation found for them in future years. So I think the first part has to do with the funding and the appropriation, which we're not appropriating money, but we're saying, in our testimony and what we heard from ORE is that they can absorb that amount of money in fiscal year 27 should things be needed. In future years, if we have them listed on the state contractor approved list, then if the administration decides there's an emergency and we have funding to hire them, they wouldn't have to go through a procurement process.
and this speaks to the reversion canceling the reversion because ORE has funds that were appropriated years ago.
And this is an allowable use for that.
Okay.
Right.
no, that's-
And then in future years, if they're on the
No, it's
list of
just-
contractors, they don't even have to come back to the legislature. So
Right.
we dealt with that.
Right. No, I'm just-
Administration would determine
To
the
get it all-
funding at that
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
for this purpose.
Exactly. Okay,
'Cause
John?
this all could be done without the legislature now, except.
We didn't, yeah, and that's kind of this is the interesting thing about this bill is that I don't think we needed a bill. And it ended up being a really,
That's Bill, so it came from the Senate.
yes.
So we're trying to clean up and make it, yeah. Exactly,
And
John.
when we got it, what I think our point was to try to assist with our legislation. So then we create a path for this organization to be accessed by various state agencies in future years.
Just really quickly here, if I can jump right in here before Marty here, is just going back to when Rep. Fiorfano introduced us to this project and what this entity produced, right? They're the entity that's produced
Yes.
everything that
Yes.
has been being used here today, right here. So I do understand the, naming of a specific, organization, however you want to categorize them here in this here. I'm not worried about it because if you don't, then what? Not worried about that either because
Yeah.
your last statement here, they could just move ahead and continue to contract with anyone here. I
Exactly.
just want to make sure the money is directed there.
Yeah.
So nothing, I think we're near that.
And just a reminder that the only organization in the country that does this work as quickly as
So I
they
think.
do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Marty?
I just want to thank you for including the natural disaster thing, because when the bill started in the Senate, it was only related to health. And in the emergency management bill that GovOps worked on, they had a section about using this same group to do some emergency management type of stuff. And I know it's not, the amount is not within the 150, but if we're saying ORE has the money and this is now an allowable use, then they can make the decision of whether they want to spend some money on natural disaster.
Yeah, so nice to expand it,
Right.
not to just
Use
help.
it.
Right, exactly. Because we will have more.
We will, yes.
Okay. Everybody good on, everybody understand what it is we're doing? Grady, did you have anything you wanted to add? I know you were helping with this, or Nolan, anybody have anything else to say?
I would just mention to the committee, great news to the fiscal, the Senate version of the budget, including an appropriation for the Senate.
Right, we're taking it out of the budget. Yeah, so that's 150,000 that we have.
welcome.
Yes. Thank you, every little bit.
We get gold stars.
So we don't have possession, so we're gonna do 2 straw polls. I talked to the clerk, Betsy Ann, this morning, and just to be sure, we'll vote on both. Withdrawing the amendment, our amendment, which Marty will announce on the floor, and then we have a straw poll, and then agreeing with them supporting this. So I'll entertain a motion to support with our withdrawing of our amendment. John and Dave. John and Dave, show. So. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Representative Bloomley,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson,
Yes.
Representative Feltus,
Yes.
Representative Consensky,
Yes.
Representative Roche,
Yes.
Representative Rowicki,
Yes.
Mike is absent. Representative Squirrel, yes. Representative Stevens.
Yes.
Representative Yakavoni,
Yes.
Representative Shaw.
Yes,
10-0-1.
thank you. And is there a motion to support the substitute amendment draft 2.1 that we just heard?
So moved.
Lynn, John, a new combination. What makes it up today?
All set.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Representative Bloomley,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson,
Yes.
Representative Feltus,
Yes.
Representative Consensky,
Yes.
Representative Roche,
Yes.
Representative Rowicki,
Yes.
Representative Squirrel, yes. Representative Stevens.
Yes.
Representative Yakavoni,
Yes.
Representative Shaw.
Yes.
0-1.
Okay, I think we're set. Thank you both. Back to the Senate floor for Katie. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you very much, Caroline, for coming in. Committee, that is our schedule for the week. Not the week. Hey, no, taking it back here. So we have the floor this afternoon, the constitutional amendment. The Committee of Conference is going to meet at 3, but given the constitutional amendment in the floor, we are postponing the Committee of Conference for the budget until tomorrow morning at 9. It'll be a short one, but we will be picking. So,
Tomorrow by 10:30.
so tomorrow we're going to also hear at 10:30, since you've mentioned it, S214, which is actually going to be on today, but we bumped it to tomorrow. That's about provision of pre-K education in geographic isolated school districts. So we'll have a walkthrough and potential vote on that tomorrow, so you can take a look at that, S214.